we were having like daily 7 a.m. meetings. And I'm like, wait a second, I have 8 client meetings after this. And then I'm getting calls from employees and doing all this stuff. And it was just like, it was fun, funny, and just ridiculous when I think back to it. And I learned a lot from it. But I was just like, what am I doing here?
Welcome to Business Buying for Financial Independence. I'm Tim Delaney, and I help young professionals buy small businesses so they can escape the 9-to-5 and take control of their time, income, and future. If that sounds like you, hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. Today I have Daniel Schlein. Daniel works with business owners, earning $500,000 plus annually, helping them to navigate the unique challenges of building wealth, raising families, and creating a legacy. His mission is simple: to be all in for his clients, doing whatever it takes to create clarity, consistency, and confidence in their financial lives. Dan, welcome to Business Buying for Fi.
Thanks for having me, Tim. It's always nice when we get to chat. I feel like we're gonna bring a lot of value today and have some fun with it. So
That's awesome. I've always enjoyed our conversations. And for a little bit of background, if you're wondering, well, what am I doing with a financial advisor type person on the podcast? It's hopefully to bring you some value in that regard as well. But Daniel actually bought a business a while ago and then exited out of that business. So he's here to tell a little bit about that story, first of all. And then, hopefully along the way, share some other insights that may or may not help you. He's not giving any advice or, to you in your situation, but just, as with everything on this podcast, hopefully you can learn a little bit. So, Dan, why don't you start out by talking a little bit about who you are, what you do today, and what your situation looks like?
yeah. So about 9 years ago, I started with a firm, Alliance Advisor Group, and before that, I was getting a marketing and finance degree at Niagara University. And really, I got to interview at a lot of different places and intern at a few different places from financial planning firms throughout the area in Buffalo. And I really got to pick the firm that aligned like really deeply with like how I approach life and how my core values and who I am as a person. And Alliance Advisor Group at the time, which is now Alliance Financial Network, is the most entrepreneurial and education focused firm that I found in that finding. And about 9 years later, I think I was right. And because I stayed at the same firm, I partnered with them and I built a practice with multiple of us under their vision and created a huge vision myself. And so it's been pretty cool.
Awesome. So you're born in Buffalo, raised in Buffalo. You're currently working in Buffalo. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that business that you bought a few years back? When was it, and how did that
Yeah.
come up?
So I mean, when I said 9 years ago, I started a financial planning practice, and in my mind, I always kind of had at first I kind of felt like I was more like a sales rep. I had to get clients, I had to figure it out. I had to consistently like survive, and very similar to like owning a business, you like have to survive, have to learn, have to grind, have to keep going, right? And so first few years I was like in my mind I kind of acted like a sales rep. How we get paid is very similar to a business owner. And um what ended up happening was I think like there was a shift in my mind that was like, wait a second, I'm looking at financial planning people around the country, and the best ones are treating it like a business. They have staff, they have other associates, they have um they're putting on amazing benefit packages. They're doing all this great stuff, and like they're business owners. And I'm like, wait a second. I actually looked. It's probably my third year. It was like 2020-ish at like how I was filing my taxes. And my dad, who was a CPA, retired partner at a local firm, um, always did my taxes, and he got really into like how it works with me. And I was like, wait a second, does that really mean I'm a business owner? And he was like, pretty much. Like, this is exactly how you're paying taxes. You make money and you subtract all your business expenses, all the costs that it takes to run the business. And so like the first few years I'm looking, I'm like, wait a second, like I made this, but then I only ended up paying taxes on here because I had to pay for certain systems and people and so on. So I started to switch that gear and I was like, so what does business owners do? So I started reading all sorts of business owner books. I started acting as accordance to that. And so roughly what was it, 5 years ago now, I hired my first staff person and was like, wait a second, if I could buy my time back and we could build process and we could do all this stuff, I can then spend more time serving clients and getting more clients and growing and learning and so on. And so all that to say, if we fast forward in my financial planning practice, I have a full-time staff person who's becoming an amazing practice manager and she's really running the show in the background. I have a associate who is fully licensed, who's been doing this almost 5 years now, Nick, who also run different client meetings, different types. He works with young families really, really well. He works with young professionals really, really well. Then we have a couple other associates and some associated staff as well that kind of help us on the back end. And so what happened was about 3, 4 years ago was like we were getting so much momentum. I felt like all we were doing was winning and getting new clients and serving people and we were crushing it. Then I was like starting to work with a lot of business owners. I was a business owner mentally at that point, and I was like, "All right, like I feel like I got a nice grasp on this business thing." Kind of reminds me of some of my clients that like buy a couple properties and think like, "Let me just go for the 36 unit," right? And they make a big leap, and it might be way out of their comfort zone, but they think they know what they're doing, and so they make that leap. And so what I ended up doing was leaping into a business with two other partners and, there was some, monetary, buy-in to get a certain percentage of the business at that point. I'm sure we'll get into it. And now I have 2 partners, a business that's growing every single day, and now we have, like, I think at that point it was, like, 18 employees, and we're having, like, daily meetings, and we're running in all these different places and so on. So, at that point, I was doing a lot of diligence, and I wanted to buy something. I wanted to do something and partake in another business. And, after looking at probably 20 businesses, I decided to do this one. So I definitely got to learn a little bit more about due diligence, learn a little bit more about having partners and growing a business, and then not only buying in, but also exiting, which I'm sure we'll get deeper into. And so that's kind of the story.
Nice. So you looked at a bunch of different businesses and then you decided to invest in this one.
Yep.
The other partners already had it kind of running up and running and you bought into it. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, a friend of mine, who I knew from a past life, he started a business and grew it very quickly. Lots of employees, like it was a little over 7 figures in their first year, revenue wise, and there was a time where he was kind of swinging money a little bit, too fast for his comfort zone and was like, "Wait a second, I could use some backup on how to, like, create some structures around this, how to get some partnerships, keep growing, like, organically do the things that I wanna do." And so he basically was, like, asking for help. He was like, "Hey, I gotta find somebody some people that are know what they're doing," and at the same time that I bought in, another friend, bought in, and so we both put up about $50,000, and we ended up partaking in this business, and from there, after us all having a cigar and a couple of drinks, we signed some paperwork, like, this was 2 separate times, but after we had a lot of conversations, then we ended up doing that, and ended up becoming partners and, running with it from there, so yeah.
Nice. So let's back up a second. What other types of businesses had you looked at prior to doing this? And just for the timeline wise, how long, what year was this, or how far along in your firm were you at that point?
Yeah, so I was this was probably 2020, late 2021, early
Okay.
2022.
All right.
So I was in year like 4 and 5. I was getting some real traction,
Yep.
growing, starting to make real money, doing all this stuff. And then I decided to take a leap. And honestly, some of the biggest learning experiences that I made was like I had some momentum, some dollars in my pocket, and some confidence. And I decided to like blow it out of the water and make a huge leap and do and one of the things that I learned was, like, doing due diligence is, like, a huge deal, and I didn't do that much due diligence in this process. I didn't have, like, a vision of the exact type of company and where I'd be the most valuable. I kind of was like spraying and hoping that something would work out. And people that are in this world like yourself and people that we talk to all the time, they have to learn some of these lessons to have then like or learn from us who are going to speak about this today that like can go like, wait a second, if I had a really clear vision of what I'm looking for and what types of businesses and where I'd be the most value or where I'd be able to add um that level of value to the table. I also understand how, like, having partnerships in business now works, and what are some things to learn about in that situation, and the list kinda goes on for the learning experience that came through, during this, and then I was only in and out of this business for about 2 years, and then I learned my lessons, good, bad, and different, and then ended up going all in my financial services business, which is caused us to grow substantially since then and really focus on how do we actually like continue to learn and continue to feed the thing that's actually been growing substantially over the years.
Yeah, I think there's a couple valuable lessons in there. First of all, you talked about taking going all in, making a big splash. Like it may not have worked out the way you thought it was going to, but
Sure.
at least you took the shot. Like most people
Absolutely.
sit on the sidelines and then wonder why they never make a big splash, and it's because they never took the leap. And
Yeah.
so doing that, and then I'm willing to bet that the lessons you learned uh, inform your current practice. You deal with business owners on a regular basis. You
Yeah.
know that we're all shiny object chasers to a extent, and it probably helps you with your advice and dealing with them and knowing that mindset because you did it yourself in taking a leap and investing and buying into a business yourself. Um,
Absolutely.
what y- what was the kind of so that you and another friend both bought into uh, this other friend's business that had
Yep.
grown pretty quickly. What was the structure? How did you guys decide on the dollar amount? How did you decide on and what, the ownership structure and responsibility structure?
Yeah, 100%. On the last thing you said really fast, I've always resonated in this. So I played a lot of sports growing up. I always resonated with like the player coach. What I mean by that is the coach that actually was like been there, done that, and then like they're telling me what to do. I've just resonated with them at the highest level. Like, wait a second, even this person who's 30 years older than me, they're still running on the field with me a little bit. They've been there, they've done those things, and so I've always wanted to be like the person that can look you in the eyes and say, not only have I been there and I coach 27 people that look like you, but this is the best way and this is how we should move forward. So I always want to have the most amount of conviction and like the most amount of knowledge so I can then bring not like here's 5 options, but like here's the best 2 and honestly let's just do this one because I think this one will work even better for you. And that's how I try to practice and that's how I try to serve the business owners that I work with every single day. Um and that tends to do a lot of good because I've seen the ebbs and flows of jumping into partnerships and doing some of these things and so on. So I just wanted to share that um, on
Yeah,
that.
that definitely resonates because it's I know that there's a case to be made out there for coaches that have never actually played the game, and sometimes they can be amazing coaches as well. But that that real life experience of I've been there, done that. I know I'm speaking from that direct experience makes a big difference.
100%. So to your question on the percentages and all that stuff, um, to be frank, I think at that point in time, I was on the tippy top of the words shiny object syndrome, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, my old buddy is 7 figures and all these things that I thought were happening." And then I saw some of the numbers on paper, and I did some due diligence and was like, I mean, if I don't care what he asks for, as long as he gets me a reasonable percent of this business, this will be great, right? Like 10 years from now, we could sell this thing. And I had these colored glasses on the whole way through due diligence, through the partnership, through whatever, until one day it hit me that like without taking the glasses off, you can't make real decisions. Like you can look at social media all day long and say your relationship's not as good as theirs, or you're not as fit as you could be because look at this person online, or like, oh my God, this person's rich. And it's like, it's, I wouldn't say the word like it's a facade, but it's just the best plays of the time. It's the best things that you get to see. And so that doesn't always tell the whole story. And so what ended up happening was we both put up $50,000 for 19% each. And so me and other, I call them friends. I mean, um, one was actually like been a friend of mine for years. The other one I knew, and we've hung out multiple times, but I wouldn't say we were best friends. We were calling each other all the time. But then we decided all get kind of into a relationship together, in a partnership. Um, it was an LLC, and we just came in as owners in the LLC. It had a property on the LLC and then the business itself. And so also that was another thing is I was like, the property itself, 19% of that's almost that amount of money. Like if we liquidated everything today, like I would get a good deal, right? And so not having the full story and the full context makes everything sound like great. Like it was like, oh, this is going to take me 5 to 10 hours a week. We're going to be able to grow and sell this thing. Like it was, there was a lot of, there's a lot of things that I just learned, and even saying it out loud, I'm like, what was I thinking getting involved in a business, thinking that 5 to 10 hours a week with a 19% owner in a business would make any sense, especially one that ran at the speed that it was running at. And the type of business that it was, because it was in the construction world, meaning like we had to go to houses and fix stuff to be able to do, to be able to make any money. So if our team wasn't seeing 10 houses a day, then we weren't making the right amount of money. There's a lot of liability in that. There's a lot of um, team structure and admin structure and operations and so on and skill level that you need to do a lot of this stuff. And I came in with the glasses on, thinking, oh, we can make all this work and it would be happily ever after. And I will say, honestly, we did a decent job. Like we had like hundreds of five-star reviews. We grew this thing pretty well. We had a lot of fun doing it, and there was a lot of positive. But just looking at it is like, even if it worked out exactly how I thought, I still learned so much from it.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it as a learning experience. You talked about the rose-colored glasses and getting excited, not maybe doing as much diligence as you should have. It sounds like you did some, and you thought about the fact that your investment was backed up by real estate, so you weren't going to lose completely. But
Sure.
what kind of time frame was it from the day you first were offered, or this idea came up, to the time that you actually wrote the check and signed the documents? Couple weeks, couple months.
Yeah, a few months.
Okay.
Um,
The
like
re
the whole yeah, keep going.
the reason I ask is that it's something that I think comes up a lot, especially in these types of scenarios, is we get excited about something. Something new comes up, a
We pull the trigger.
new opportunity. You see it, you're like, "That's awesome." And then when you actually slow down and think about it and, like, put some deep thought into it, and you start realizing, "Yeah, actually, wait, what am I thinking? Is that actually a good opportunity? Like, do I want to
Yeah.
do X, Y, or Z for the next 5, 10 years?" Like, um, and it's I think especially when friends are involved and you see dollar signs, it's easy to get excited and not think through everything as thoroughly as we probably should.
Yeah. Yeah, a few months for sure. But couldn't agree more. I think the glasses definitely put a nice layer over it. So like even just seeing something that maybe I should have been a huge massive red flag, like, we'll work through it. We'll figure it out. Oh, we can pay some of that off or we can make that move or um but yeah, the excitement definitely took over, and I think just, like, getting a couple friends, building a cool business, like, running fast together would it was just kind of a dream at that time, um, and it took, like, my normal decision-making process and kinda threw it out.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, when you talked about, you mentioned the idea in your head of we can build this up for 10 years and then sell it. Did you have a formal exit strategy right from the beginning?
So with my, day-to-day stuff, I focus on protecting, growing, and exiting business. That's like what I talk about all day long. And so I always think with the end in mind. Like it's like at some point things are gonna change, right? Whether it's good, bad, and difference besides the point. And so I was in the back of my mind was like, okay, these are some steps you take to get there. If we formalize process, if we get the right team in place, if we truly get the profit margin where we need it to be, those will all get us in a place where we can totally go look for buyers and opportunities and, like, you can get acquired, we could be the one acquiring at that point, like, there was other options for that too, and so, we every now and then would there was nothing formal written down, but we would talk about it all the time, and we were like, we needed to get some other ducks in a row before we formalized some of that, but we definitely I always think like that, so I was pushing them to, like, let's take these steps first. Let's get these in order. Let's have a baseline of what the business is actually valued. That's how we bought in. And we already knew that. We knew we were getting a good deal on the baseline value of the business at the time that we bought in anyways. And then the main owner at that time was fair because he needed help. Um, and so on. So yes, thinking you at the end of mind is very important when it comes to the business because things can grow fast and can go away fast. And so knowing that, understanding the baseline of how the steps should kind of look helps kind of grasp the whole concept.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds, I know the end or somewhat of the end of the story here, but it sounds like things didn't necessarily go as planned for you in that business. Kind of what turned or what transpired as the
Yeah.
years went on?
Yeah, and um it kind of all started with the foundation that was set up front. Like the glasses were on, like we just talked about. Um the business structure wasn't where it should have been when we got involved, and all the changes that we wanted to make and make everything like how we thought we could do and pay certain things off certain ways and so on. When we were doing it, we were running out of time based on, like, what we didn't know before we got involved, like the debt picture and the amount of dollars that getting swung in projects. We're like, "Okay, if we just charge a little bit more upfront," like and started to make moves, but we realized that, like, we kind of got ourselves involved in something that, like, we needed to be literally full time in to be able to get to where we did, and I just naive at the time, I think, in this whole, scheme of things was like, "I'm not gonna go all in, but why would I put my money somewhere where I couldn't even hold up the side of it?" And so what ended up happening was, we progressed it got tighter, got a little bit stronger, got more profitable, but then it, like, started to take on more and more of a load for everybody, and then with one of our partners having a newborn, another business, a lot of stuff going on there. And then our other partner was going through a lot of stuff personally and with his family and so on and so forth. I was the one who was supposed to be like the most back end. Like I was the most like the strongest when it comes to financials, strongest when it comes to partnerships. And so I was like, why don't I just sit there and connect people and bring this thing up and get some cool employees and do what I do best, which is build relationships and strategy. And then it was like I actually needed to like go door to door and start doing some of the work to really get us where we needed to be. And unfortunately, involved in a business that I actually didn't know the weeds of. I don't have any experience in construction. I can't even fix my own house, let alone somebody else's. And so I'm involved in a business that I actually really couldn't pick up the any of the pieces, and the other two were doing everything that they could, but I needed to be and they needed to be um ebbing and flowing a little bit differently. And so we ran ourselves into a place where it didn't make sense to have me involved anymore because I wasn't the player that I like needed to be. And so what I ended up doing is stepping away and giving back the ownership, and we made some changes and so on. And it was taking 5x the amount of it was probably taking 2 or 3x the amount of time and probably 5x the amount of capacity of what I thought. And the big difference with those 2 is just I always find that, like, time is actually like, okay, I have a meeting, it takes an hour, but, like, how long did you think about it? How long did you prep it? How long did you think about it after? And you're like, wait a second, that hour meeting spent 5 hours to actually have that meeting. Like this podcast might only be 45 minutes, but I spent probably an hour writing notes about that because I haven't been in that business in years. And we have to edit it and get it out and all that stuff. Right. And so um we were having like daily 7 a.m. meetings and to like check in, move things forward and so on. And I'm like, wait a second, I have 8 client meetings after this. And then I'm getting calls from employees and doing all this stuff. And it was just like, it was funny, and just ridiculous when I think back to it. Um, and I learned a lot from it, but I was just like, what am I doing here? Like my day-to-day stuff is what makes me the most amount of happiness, money, all those things. And so I had to make a transition personally because I was going to lose my mind a little bit throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a tough, it sounds like a tough situation. Construction is challenging and on a lot of levels. It's, there's a lot going on, and especially if you're not familiar, you can't be the salesman if you're not
Yeah.
the
I
expert.
can't tweak the quoting system when I
Yeah,
have no idea what's
yeah,
going on here.
yeah. And I want to touch briefly on the equity piece and the work piece as well, because
Sure.
I don't know what your exact operating agreement was or how thorough or unthorough it was,
Yeah.
but just a note for listeners out there is if you partner on a business with somebody, with anybody or multiple people,
Yeah.
your ownership percentage does not necessarily mean anything in terms of how much work or effort you need to do or should be
Correct.
doing or are expected to do, and nor does the amount of money that you put in or how that relates. It should kind of all relate to who's getting what ownership, but the operating agreement, or as some people refer to it, the operating disagreement, because it usually only comes up when there's problems later on,
Yeah.
is where it's laid out what everybody is expected to do and what their contribution should be physically and presence, work wise, whatever it is.
Sure.
So, just because Daniel owned 19% of it didn't mean that that's one work day a week that he was supposed to be there.
Sure.
It depended on the operating agreement and how that was structured. Um, do you have anything to add or a note on that
Yeah.
type of thing?
I look at operating agreements as like one of the most important pieces because it's pretty clear on like who's who, what's what, what's the deal. And so I completely agree that like you can have 75% of the business and not work in it at all. And you can have 1% and be the hardest worker ever. You could have no percent and be the best player on the field and working more than anybody put together. And so if you're an owner in any capacity, you have to have those conversations bluntly up front. And I'll equate it to like a business partnership. We're talking about a partnership, an operating agreement. Don't have to have a partnership to have an operating agreement, but it makes a lot more sense when you do. Is just being very clear on like who's who and what's what. And so if you think about a marriage for a second, you got to understand like what that actually looks like when you do get married and how much changes when that happens. So going from not owning the business to owning the business, or going from being you're the own owner, the sole owner, to having another owner is a huge deal. Um, and it could be the game changer you're looking for to get you to the next level, or it could be a big headache that you never wanted. I think at the end of the day, that's exactly what marriage. It could be the best thing you've ever done, or it could be maybe the wrong decision. And that's just how it ends up panning out. And so being clear up front is so freaking important.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. It's, good partnerships start on that basis of a good foundation. I used to be very anti-partnership in business. I was kind of scared of it.
Sure.
Six years ago, I started a partnership in my real estate, and we talked through a lot of those things up front. In fairness, we probably didn't talk through enough of them, but we got through a lot. And if you sit down with a lot of people like to avoid startup costs, and you like to avoid attorneys or consultants or whatever it is. And I've been there. I do that as well. But a good business attorney for an hour or 2 hours sitting down and asking both or all the partners questions will make that operating agreement so much stronger and put everybody out on the same page going in, which will set you up for better success in the long run. I guess, do you want to talk a little bit about how that business ended up for you?
Yeah, I look at it this way, and I'm gonna oversimplify a little bit because I think it'll be more important to understand the lessons that I learned than it will be the actual technical what actually happened. So I exited. The two of them took it back, and then what ended up happening was they ended up closing the business down eventually later on, and so that's why I don't talk about it often because it's like an old story. Um, and um, it was a big learning experience. I think some of the big things is like take the glasses off, like we've talked about, and make true decisions. I went against the advisors I've listened to in my world so much. They told me a lot of different things around it, and I didn't listen. So that was one. Two, getting involved with not only one partner but two is like probably is much due diligence as you do to even consider marriage. And so I always look at the 2 people I got, involved with, I loved them both, but there were certain things I didn't know about them that if I woulda known before would have been, um, helped being complimented differently, and we would have been able to work through things differently, or maybe we wouldn't have done what we did. Um, and so that was a big learning experience that, like, if you spend years after years after years before you get married, why are you just jumping into business partnerships without knowing much about, like, did you go out to dinner with their spouse? Do you know their kids? Like, how do they look at certain things? Because you're literally gonna go and start a business with somebody else, and you're gonna spend so much time with them, it's gonna be crazy. You're not even gonna know what to expect because there's gonna be so much that comes with that, and so, if you don't align in, like, huge things in huge areas, you're gonna run into problems, and so, um, that doesn't mean don't do it. I'm kind of on the same alignment with Tim is um, I look back at it as like, maybe I shouldn't have done a partnership, but at the end of the day, if you compliment the people that you're talking to, like Tim's partnership's awesome. And they complement each other perfectly and it works out and they think it's fair and they're running a great business. So, um, that and then I think those are most of my lessons. I think doing your due diligence is like a great words to say out loud, but what does it actually mean? It means understand what you're looking for, what you would be the best in, what you'd be able to bring the most value to, have some values around what you're looking to do, what your expertise are, and then actually what's happening in the business, numbers wise, people wise. Get into the weeds. Act like you're meeting the in-laws for the first time, like, go deep and understand, like, what you might be getting into for the rest of your life. And so that's how I would treat it. I would treat it really seriously and not just, "Oh, this looks good on paper. They said they made some money." Like, get the financial statements and look actively for red flags. That would be my last thing on that, is what's kind of not feeling right? Why didn't they share the tax returns with me after asking 4 times? Or what why do I keep feeling like that person doesn't get along with these types of people? And that's weird because they're the lead salesperson when it comes to X, Y, and Z. Like look actively for them. Don't make them up, but look for them. And I think those tactics will help you buy in or just be able to become partners of businesses just with how much value you can bring. And sometimes you don't even need money to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So most people associate due diligence with actually looking at the financials and the numbers and the actual business. I really like that you led that due diligence piece with kind of looking at yourself and what you bring and what value you add, and to the extent, to some extent, what that business is going to mean for your life. Like, does it align with your life? Like, do you want it in your, do you want that business in your life? Is that something you're going to be happy about and engaged with for the long term? I say a lot, it doesn't have to be your ultimate life's passion, but it can't be something that you are going to wake up in a year or two and be like, why am I doing this? I don't even like X, Y, or Z. I know nothing about this and I don't have any interest in learning it. So I like how you led with that due diligence piece of really understanding yourself and your role in the business. And then obviously the actual numbers, the background, the history, the industry. Where is the industry going? Especially in today's day and age with AI disrupting
Sure.
a lot of stuff. So that's all awesome, awesome stuff. I appreciate that. Um, from your from your kind of experience dealing with that and dealing with other business owners, what kind of characteristics do you think makes a good business owner? What do you think? I guess if somebody out there has a job, doesn't own a business, but is thinking about business or working for themselves, what do you think? What kind of characteristics do you think make for the best business owner?
Yeah, awesome question. The first one that popped into my mind really fast was grit.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is like every single day, no matter if you have a job or kids or a business or whatever, you're getting kicked figuratively. Um, and so what I mean by that is like you're taking hits, you're getting pushed down, there's things happening in your world. And in business, I just have realized that they happen a lot harder, bigger, they get hit quicker, and like you're like you don't never know how someone's gonna take your knees right off from under you every single day. And I think the people that have the most grit, like, they're almost looking for it in, like, the way of, like, "If I don't get knocked down today, that was a great day." And so I think the people that look at it with, like, "It's gonna be super, super hard, and I'm gonna have to work so, so hard, and I'm gonna look down and keep pushing forward for I would even say 4 to 5 years. Some people say 2 or 3, some people say 10. I think if you're not looking at 4 to 5 years in business, then I don't think you're doing it right, to be honest with you, and I see people I just actually saw a video on this. It was like they're looking for diamonds, and they get, like, literally 1 hair of dirt away from all the diamonds, and they quit. And I feel like people do that every single day. They go, like, 2 years, 6 months, 3 years, and then they quit, and then they have to go do something else and start over, and then they never get to the place where they want to, and I think you gotta get kicked while you're down, and you gotta get back up. So I think grit is, like, the number 1 I see. There's, like, something like, a little bit off in somebody when they keep getting kicked and they keep getting back up, but they're the ones that end up figuring it out because they learn the most lessons.
yeah, sounds very close to the definition of insanity of doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result. But to your, you know, this is a little bit different in the sense of you believe in it, you're going to keep pushing forward, you're going to get the result that you want. And if you give up too early, I completely agree. I've seen that cartoon as well with the diamonds, and it's true. Like people like to get into something thinking it's going to be happen faster than it does.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, 4, 5, 6 years really isn't a long time when you think about it. For owning a business for 5, 6 years versus working a desk job for 40 plus years, to me, there's not really much comparison. I'd take the 6, 7 years of grit and hard work to set myself up for success in the longer run. Um, what, if, you know, a little bit from a financial perspective, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages for people owning their own business?
So, I'm gonna start with taxes for a second. Um, the biggest tax incentives, we'll call them, are in 2 places: business and real estate. That's it. Mic drop. Like, the amount of money that you can make and find ways to add value to the community by like having housing in real estate or making jobs or bringing value to people in business is why the tax code favors those 2 areas. So when you see this um ridiculous thing that's like so and so made $1 billion, paid no money in taxes, is because they actually brought that much value because they actually probably house thousands of people, or they have a business that is that many things, and they're eligible to take loans that are tax free. They're eligible to do some of those things and get some of the biggest tax write off hacks. They're just things in the tax code. I'm not a CPA. I'm not going to advise on their taxes, but those are the main reasons why. From my actual perspective, is there's a lot more creativity that can be done with the higher incomes that we see in business to mitigate tax, to invest in certain things. I'll give you one really, really quick one. Is like if you're an employee, you're eligible to put up to like $23,000 in a 401k, changes every year. Give or take, it was 21.5. Now it's going up a little bit. And if you just that day decided to start a business and you made a bunch of money through it, you can actually open up something called the SEP IRA, and you can literally put in 60 grand in there. Now instead of a 20 something thousand dollar deduction, you're getting a $60,000 deduction. With solo 401ks or 401ks that you actually run yourself with employees, you could do more than that. There's tricks to do even more. Um, there's things on top of that called cash balance plans where you can put even more on top of that. And so, like, if you're like, I just want to mitigate tax, I mean, you can put hundreds of thousands of dollars away and mitigate that tax. That doesn't mean you can use the money tomorrow. That doesn't mean it's just one strategy I thought of. But there's a lot more flexibility with that. Plus, you get to choose how your benefits booklet looks. Instead of at an employer, you just have to like opt in or out, or maybe they don't have any or whatever it is. Plus, you don't get to pick when you get paid and how much and all that stuff, right? And so, as a business owner, your independence is all everything. And so, at first, it seems like none of that's even a plus because there's not much income. You don't really have the money for benefits, all this stuff. But then later, you get to create your own benefits. You get to create your own payroll system. You get to take as much money as you want and put it in all the great things that you want to do. And so I think it gives you a lot more flexibility later on if you do survive 4, 5, 6, 10 years and you do get to a point where the income is where you want it to be.
Yeah. I love that you touched on the taxes, specifically, because that is something that a lot of people look at it and get frustrated that certain business owners or real estate investors don't pay taxes. But the tax code, from what I understand, is written not to tell you what you can't do, but to encourage you to do certain things. The government,
Correct.
we don't want the government to try to do some of the things that the private sector can and should be doing. And that's how they incentivize us to do it. So read it, understand it, and use it to your advantage. That's what it's there for. It's not, some people refer to them as loopholes, but they're not really loopholes. That's the way that was written. They were written intentionally. It's not so that's awesome. And I would just add the flexibility in general. I like that those, the benefit packages, it goes, in the early years when I first bought my wine and liquor store, there wasn't enough money to do any benefits anyway.
No.
So
Barely
it is
eat.
what it
You're
is.
like ramen noodles
Yep.
and
But as things grew, there's options open up. I can choose my healthcare. I can choose my how I invest in the long term, how the company invests in me, and things like that. So it opens a lot of doors owning your own business. Um, as we get close to wrapping up here, and I guess on that note too, like you know how to help business owners. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what you do and how people can find you once they've bought a business and grown it a little bit to need your services?
yeah, I mean, a couple different things that I work with every day on. I think earlier I mentioned protect the business, grow the business, and exit it. When we're talking about protection for a second, do we have the right liability? Do we have the right benefits? Do we have the right agreements in place and so on? Are we funding the right? Do we have the operating agreement? Do we have a buy sell agreement? Are those funded? How does those look? And so on. When we're talking about growing, that's like being more strategic. Your executive benefits. Let's keep your best people. Let's have the best agreements to compensate those people to get run faster for you. Um, those are things like 401k planning and how do we put more money away and all those things to help grow the business. Then exiting, do we have a strategy? Like we talked about, are we looking with the end in mind? To be able to formalize like, hey, we valued our business at, and we can also help on the business val side is like, we valued our business at $10 million. We have 3 partners. Let's make sure that we have the right things in place to protect, grow, and exit that thing the proper way. And then all of that leads into on the personal side. You can't just take a solid $10 million, take a $10 million check in your brokerage account and call it a day, right? Is that enough to retire forever? Is that enough to buy more businesses? What about your kids? What about the estate plan overall? What about the personal planning and so on? And so I get really excited because we get to walk through from start to finish, personal and business and wrap it into one to make sure that you're mitigating taxes, you're maximizing the value of your business, and you have the best places to put it so you can make the most amount of income and you can do all of the great things that you want to do and live out the dream without not realizing how much money you owe in taxes and how your plan actually doesn't work and all these other things. Let's get ahead of a lot of that. Easiest way to follow me, guys, is LinkedIn. I post every single day. Facebook business, I post every single day. So feel free to follow me on that. And if you reach out to me that way, it's probably the easiest way to just connect really fast too.
Yeah, he's super active on LinkedIn, always there, always posting valuable content and adding adding comments to other people's posts as well. So check him out there. And on that note, we'll get out of here. Before I do, I just want to ask everybody out there to do me a favor. If you've enjoyed this content, take a second to leave a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app that you're listening to. It really helps us get the word out and connect with more people. So thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.
See you guys. This material contains the current opinions of the presenter, but not necessarily those of Guardian or subsidiaries, and such opinions are subject to change without notice. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that the individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guardian, its subsidiary agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professionals regarding your current situation. Daniel Schlein, a registered representative and financial advisors of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS. Securities products and advisory services offered through PAS, member of FINRA, SIPC, financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PAS is wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Alliance Financial Network Incorporated is not affiliated or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. And then 8734812.1. Expiration number is 0228.
Thanks for listening to Business Buying for Financial Independence. If you're serious about owning your time and building long-term wealth, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.